This is a very curious gospel, and there are many points in this text that are worth a reflection. But there is one phrase in here that appears only in Mark's gospel and only in this text. You'll find it nowhere else. And it jumps out at you. And it probably needs some attention by way of understanding. Jesus comes home to Capernaum, it says. His home is in Capernaum. He was rejected at Nazareth. He made his home at Capernaum now, which is a good distance from Nazareth, probably more than one day's walking. But his relatives come in order to seize him because they say he's out of his mind. Jesus is out of his mind. Others, texts will say he is mad. They think he's mad. Lost his mind. We should reflect on that and wonder what that truly means and if it means something for us. Last weekend I was back in Connecticut at a wedding, so I missed the weekend here at Holy Family. And back there at this big gathering, I met many young people. Young to me is 30. At my age, young. You're 30, you're young. 40, you're young. And there's a mantra that appears not infrequently when people say to you, I'm spiritual, but I'm not religious. You've heard that. We've all heard that. I don't want to go to church. I don't want to belong to a church, but I'm spiritual. Well, sometimes it's a little bit of a cop-out. I don't want to invest the time. I don't want to give the time. It's kind of a lazy response to the presence of God in your life, but not always. I think there's more to it. And many people who say they're spiritual but not religious are saying something that we ought to listen to. To be spiritual, genuinely spiritual, not just by way of a cop-out, but be genuinely spiritual, is to be aware of God's presence, to feel God's presence in all the experiences of life, to be conscious that in light and in darkness, in the best times and in the hardest of times, you have this sense that you are in the presence of God. So in your times of pain or your suffering or your loneliness or your rejection or judgments made upon you, get this feel that the strength of God dwelling within you will carry you. I've had this many times in my own life, where I was in great darkness and going through great travail, but I had this sense that the power of Jesus Christ will carry me, and it did. In times of great celebration, the sense that gifts and graces and blessings, the sign of God's abundance in my life. Many of you watched the Belmont Stakes yesterday, and you saw the jockey Mike Smith win the Triple Crown. And when he got over his emotions and still in the saddle, and he was asked, what do you have to say? And he looked up and he said, praise be Jesus Christ, my Lord and Savior. Sounds like he's spiritual. I don't know if he has a church, but he sounds spiritual. And then they asked the owner of the horse, one of the owners, he said, what do you have to say? And he said, first thing is, I thank God for this day. Sounds like he's aware of God. It's that spiritual, it's that awareness, that sense. There are no boundaries here. It's just this sense that God is in my life. God is in the summertime. God is in the winter. God is in the seasons of life. I know, I sense the presence of God. That's to be genuinely spiritual. Religious can be something different. Religion comes from a Latin religare. Ligare means to bind. And religion, when people say they are religious, frequently enough, they indicate they belong to a community of faith, where there is definition, there's structure, there are rules, there are laws. You have to qualify sometimes to belong to this religion. Maybe not all are welcome in every religion. And the religion tends to claim a certain orthodoxy, unquestioned orthodoxy, like we have the answers. Religion can be subject to that weakness. And yet, religion without spirituality is like a body without a soul. No soul here. The feeling, it's institutional thinking, it's boundaries, it's laws, regulations, it's doctrines. But there's this sense of soul, the sense of feeling God's presence. That's authentic religion. That's when spirituality is infused into religion. It has been wisely said that parents who don't listen to their children, teachers who don't learn from their students, and church leaders who are not informed by their followers are all destined to fail. That may well be true. Therefore, it prompts all people in places of responsibility to be good listeners. And listen, watch the teaching of Jesus. He listens, he feels, he belongs to moments in people's lives. He is the one that listens to the woman at the well, the Samaritan woman. Remember her in the Gospel of John, 5 times married. Now she's searching. He gives her time, makes no judgment. He's reverence, a respect for her. He's listening. He listens to the Gospel of John, this woman taken in adultery. He doesn't make a judgment. He listens to her. He was the one who ate with tax collectors and public sinners. He listens to their poverty, their search, their yearning for something deeper in life. He touched the leper, raised the dead, consoled the sorrowing. He connected because he listened. He's speaking to us about spirituality. For his first followers, he picked people who are very human. He didn't come and say, let me find the most charismatic, the most intelligent, the most powerful leaders. He just picked folks like us, ordinary people, people that make mistakes. And he never gave up on them. Denial, betrayal, he never gave up on the humanity of his followers. He listened. He understood. He was patient. He was the one that said, go the extra mile. Give the shirt off your back. Love your enemies. Forgive those who are undeserving. Share what you have with those who don't deserve. Wow. And of course, he violated the Torah many times, being a devout Jew, but violating the Torah. He rejected the rigidity, the legalism of the Pharisees, the institutional religion of the time. He listened to the feelings and the anxieties and the hungers of people. Didn't make judgments, didn't reject people. He drew people to him through listening, spirituality. And of course, the way he lived and the way he taught, he's out of his mind. It's not practical what he's saying. He lost his mind. And of course, they're going to say, he is revealing the madness of God's infinite love. God's infinite love makes no sense to the world. The fact that everybody is loved, there's room for everybody in the kingdom. Nobody should be excluded. We need to embrace all people. Each person is a reflection of the wonder of God. Madness. It's the madness of God's infinite love. And therefore his family comes to say, we think he lost his mind. The Torah, where is the Torah? The Torah. He's violated the Torah all over the place. Touched dead bodies, touched the leper, rendered unclean according to the Leviticus and Deuteronomy laws. The teaching of Jesus is the infinite embrace of God's love for everyone. It's amazing. It is so beyond us that what we have to do in order to begin to grasp it is we have to domesticate this God. We have to put laws and regulations and rules and religion around this God in order to make the God normal, like us. We tend to make the God in our image, not the image of God revealed by Jesus Christ, especially when they said he's out of his mind. St. Paul, in his letter to the Romans, there in chapter 5, verse 8, says, God showed his love for us in that Jesus died for us while we were yet sinners. So, the Lord's Day is a good day. It's a day when we sense God's presence, feel, interpret God speaking to you through other people you'll meet today. Look in the face of a child and see the wonder, the miracle of God's presence. Look in the face of an elder person who is lonely and see the invitation of God to heal, to touch, to belong. Look for the person carrying pain to say, will you belong to me? Will you walk with me? Will you understand me? Look for the person who has offended you, saying, I forgive you, not because you deserve it, but because I need to follow the God who is out of his mind.